During a holiday party at the Fairmont Grand Hotel, a journalist decided to take a stab at former President Donald Trump in an unexpected way. The atmosphere in the ballroom was dazzling, with crystal chandeliers shining down on the elegantly dressed waiters. The conversation flowed smoothly, adding a touch of grandeur to the annual event. Guests included some of the country's most influential figures, business moguls, actors, and journalists, all gathered to support a foundation dedicated to helping disadvantaged youth. The energy in the air was palpable, but a growing tension set in as the journalist prepared to take the stage. Sitting discreetly in a less visible corner was Barron Trump, then 18 years old. His height and stoic posture made him stand out, despite his intention to go unnoticed. Invited by a family friend, Barron seemed content to watch, his blue eyes sweeping the room with a calm that belied his age. The party was proceeding smoothly, with a string quartet playing in the background while waiters served delicate hors d'oeuvres and champagne. Conversation was lively and laughter echoed through the room. However, as the evening wore on, it became clear that the highlight would be a talk by the journalist, a celebrated figure in liberal media circles known for his controversial opinions and fiery rhetoric. When the journalist was announced, the atmosphere changed. The chatter stopped and all eyes turned to the stage. Barron also leaned forward slightly, his expression unchanged. The journalist walked onto the stage with a confident smile, dressed impeccably in a dark shirt. The audience applauded politely, but there was an anticipation in the air. The journalist started off lightheartedly, joking about the city's traffic and sharing a funny anecdote about a disaster at a past gala. The audience's laughter broke the initial tension. However, the tone soon changed. What began as general commentary on politics and culture turned into pointed criticism of well-known political figures, including Donald Trump. Well, we can't talk about the state of the world without mentioning the man who created the red wave and the new black wave, the journalist said, drawing nervous laughter from the audience. Love him or hate him, you have to admit, he is the gift that keeps on giving for people like me. Barron, sitting calmly, did not react. The journalist continued, making increasingly caustic jokes about Trump's policies, his tweets, and even his public appearances. The laughter began to die down, replaced by a growing discomfort among those present. And of course, we cannot forget his most disastrous legacy. The next generation, said the journalist, pausing for effect. Let's talk about Barron. A collective sigh went through the room. Heads turned to Barron, who remained motionless, now the center of attention. The journalist continued, his words filled with sarcasm. Imagine growing up in a gilded tower, surrounded by marble and gold, while your father tweets about covfefe and the rest of us try to survive Sunday mornings. It must have been character development. The joke went down badly. A few laughed nervously, but most remained silent. The spotlight, unexpected and intense, fell directly on Barron. Instead of flinching, he remained calm, his composure unshakable. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for his reaction. Barron didn't move or change his expression. He remained perfectly still, his hands resting lightly on the table. The silence grew, becoming almost unbearable. A few people looked away, their discomfort palpable. Even the reporter seemed to sense the tension, his confidence beginning to waver. They might have expected a laugh or a sharp retort, but Barron offered only a dignified silence. His silence was not indifference. It was an expression in itself. It said, I hear you, I see you, and I am not shaken. A murmur broke the silence as someone near the stage whispered to his companion. The journalist cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the moment. A tough audience, he said into the microphone, forcing a laugh that no one joined in. Then Barron moved. Slowly and deliberately, he pulled his chair back and stood up. The sound of the chair legs scraping against the floor was the only sound in the room. At over 6 feet tall, he cut an imposing figure. His height was matched by an aura of unexpected maturity. He looked out at the audience, his gaze sweeping the room before settling on the journalist. Barron didn't need to speak. His presence commanded attention, silencing even the quietest whispers. He pushed off the table and walked to the stage, each step measured, his posture direct and unwavering. The journalist backed away, his confidence evaporating as Barron approached. The audience watched, wide-eyed, with a mixture of anticipation and uncertainty. No one knew what he would say or do, but one thing was certain. This young man was taking control of the moment. When Barron took the stage and finally spoke, his words were something no one could have anticipated. "Thank you for your presentation," he began, his voice steady and deliberate. His choice of words took the journalist and the audience by surprise. There was no anger, just a sense of control that seemed far beyond his years. "I grew up watching people make assumptions about me, my family and my life," Barron continued, his eyes fixed on the reporter. "It's almost a game for some, a way to fill in the blanks when you don't know the full story. And I get it, we're public figures, it comes with the territory." The room was silent, caught by the clarity and maturity in his voice. Even those who had laughed at the earlier jokes were now still, their expressions etched with uncertainty. "But there's something important that's often overlooked," Barron said, his tone changing slightly, gaining a subtle intensity. "Behind every headline, behind every joke, is a human being. Someone with their own struggles, dreams, and stories. You might think you know me because of who my father is, but no, not really." The journalist, who had been holding the edge of the podium, now looked visibly uncomfortable. Barron's words weren't an attack. They were a mirror, reflecting back the weight of what had happened. "What I've learned," Barron said, pausing for a moment, "is that respect doesn't have to be earned. It should be given freely, especially when you don't know someone's story." A murmur of agreement went around the room, but Barron wasn't finished yet. He turned slightly, now addressing the audience as much as the journalist. "We live in a time where it's easy to break each other," he said, his voice calm but full of quiet conviction. "Words have power. They can hurt or heal. They can divide or unite. And I think we could all use a little more of the latter." The audience was in rapt attention. Barron's words, spoken with calm resolution, carried a weight that seemed to transcend his years. It was clear that he was not merely responding to a moment. He was speaking to something much larger, something universal. Barron took a step back, his gaze once again settling on the reporter. "I hope this gives you something to think about," he said softly. There was no malice in his voice, just a quiet strength that left the room in awe. He turned and began walking back to his desk, the soft sound of his footsteps on the polished floor the only sound in the tense silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the journalist was frozen, his previous bravado completely dissolved. But when Barron sat down and the applause began to grow, the true impact of his words extended far beyond that room. The applause began as a hesitant clap from someone near the front of the room, but it quickly grew, spreading like wildfire. Within moments, the entire ballroom was on its feet, clapping in a brilliant ovation. Some clapped in admiration, others with a sense of redemption for the tension that had hung in the air only minutes before. The journalist, still at the podium, tried to force a smile, but it was clear that the moment was no longer his. Barron, seated back at his desk, did not react to the applause. He remained composed, offering only a polite nod to those around him. It was neither humility nor arrogance. It was the quiet mark of someone who had said exactly what needed to be said. Within hours, clips of the moment began to flood social media. Attendees had surreptitiously recorded Barron's speech on their phones, and the video was spreading like wildfire. Tweets, Instagram stories, and TikTok clips captured the essence of the evening, with commentary ranging from admiration for Barron's composure to criticism of the journalist's inappropriate humor. "Barron Trump just gave an entire room a lesson in class and respect," read one viral tweet. Another post, shared by a celebrity and attendees, said, "Regardless of what you think of his family, this young man gave us a lot to think about." Social media picked up on the story the next day. Some applauded Barron for his maturity, calling it a defining moment for someone who had spent much of his life under public scrutiny. Others debated the ethics of the journalist's comments, questioning whether public figures, especially young ones, should be subject to such scrutiny. The journalist, in turn, issued a statement the following day. "Comedy and commentary are powerful tools, but they must be used responsibly. Last night, I crossed a line and apologized to Barron Trump for my comments. However, not everyone took the apology seriously. Newspapers, podcasts, and forums were filled with heated debates about the incident. Some argued that Barron's words were a necessary call for civility in an increasingly polarized world. Others saw them as a reminder that even public figures are human beings who deserve respect. To Barron, however, the sudden attention seemed irrelevant. He returned to his daily life with the same quiet dignity that had defined his response at the gala. Those who knew him said he barely acknowledged the uproar, choosing instead to focus on his studies and personal interests. But as Barron moved on, the lessons of that night remained, sparking conversations that extended far beyond the ballroom. As the buzz of the gala evening died down, the effects continued to echo far and wide. The media eventually moved on to other stories, but the moment lingered in discussions at dinner tables, classrooms, and offices. People were talking about the night not just for its drama, but for the powerful lessons it left behind. Barron's calm, thoughtful response had struck a chord. In a year dominated by shame and instant reactions, his choice to approach the situation with poetry and perspective was a refreshing anomaly. Many drew parallels to their own lives, wondering how often we pause before reacting, how often we choose words that build rather than tear down. For some, the incident was a call to action. It highlighted how easy it is to dehumanize others in the name of humor, politics, or entertainment. The journalist's comments were a powerful reminder that words aren't just meant to entertain. They can also hurt. Parents used the moment as a teaching opportunity for their children. Barron's videos have become a tool to discuss respect, empathy, and the importance of standing up for yourself without tearing others down. Teachers praised his ability to handle conflict and encouraged students to think critically about how they communicate. But the biggest impact of the evening was his ability to unite, even if only for a moment. People from different political spectrums and walks of life came together in admiration for Barron's maturity. It wasn't about his last name or his father's legacy. It was about a young man demonstrating that respect and empathy still have a place in the world, even in the face of provocation. By choosing to respond with dignity and integrity, Barron reminded everyone in that room and countless others watching from afar that dignity is a choice. Their actions showed that no matter how heated or polarized the situation, there is always power in choosing to stand up. As the conversations continued, one sentiment seemed to resonate louder. Words can hurt, but they can also heal. It is up to each of us to decide how to use them. In the end, Barron's actions not only stood up for his own dignity, they inspired a moment of collective reflection, a reminder that respect, even when undeserved, can be a transformative force. Let Barron's example be a reminder to us all. Words have power. Use them wisely. Whether it's with a friend, a stranger, or even someone you disagree with, choose respect and empathy. If this story resonated with you, be sure to subscribe for more real-life stories that challenge and inspire us to be better. Let's keep the conversation going.